I opened the door, and there she was. An old lynx, standing on my porch, so thin her ribs could slice through the fog. Her right front paw hung limp, her left eye cloudy. She didn't growl, didn't hiss. She just looked at me like I was the last thing keeping her upright. And then she collapsed. That moment rewired something in my head. I'm Tom, 42. Used to be a mechanical engineer, now temporarily unemployed and temporarily divorced. After the burnout and the big blow-up at work, I rented this old cabin deep in the Vermont mountains for the summer. Wanted to breathe, wanted to forget, fix the porch, fish a little, clear my head. But I hadn't planned on saving a lynx. She lay there breathing shallow. I panicked. I grabbed a blanket and slowly stepped outside. No sudden moves. My brain screamed wild animal. Rabies. Infection. But something kept me going. I wrapped her gently. She didn't resist. Her fur was coarse, full of burrs. I set her on a sleeping bag near the back door and went inside to call someone. Anyone. But you know what I learned real quick? Nobody wants to deal with an old lynx. Game wardens? Too risky. Local shelter? Illegal. Rehab centers? Booked for weeks. And me? A guy with no experience, no plan, just a bleeding heart. I stood in my tiny kitchen, holding my phone, listening to one more voicemail say, "Sorry, we can't help you." I looked out the window and saw her chest barely rising. The thought crossed my mind. Maybe I should just walk away. Let nature take its course. But I didn't. The first night, I barely slept. She didn't eat, just breathed and blinked. I left out water and a bit of raw chicken breast. Next morning, it was gone. That gave me hope. Day 2, she tried to move. Her paw dragged. I looked closer. Not broken, maybe an old wound or nerve damage. I kept researching. Quietly, I named her Gray, because her coat was more ash than gold. Each day she stayed, never came inside, just laid near the steps. I built her a small shelter with some old planks and an old tarp I had in the shed. Every morning, I'd find her curled there, still breathing, watching. Week 2, I got bold. Sat next to her. She didn't move. I read out loud just to fill the silence. Articles, weather reports, my old journal entries. And sometimes, when I paused, she blinked like she was listening. Then, something changed. One evening, while I was chopping firewood, she limped closer. I froze, axe still in hand. She sniffed at my boot and then slowly pressed her side against my leg. Not for affection, I think she just needed the warmth. I whispered, "You're okay now." But I wasn't. See, Gray wasn't just healing. She was exposing everything I was trying to bury, my anger, my regret, my shame. I started telling her things I hadn't told anyone. About my ex, my dad, the panic attacks. She'd just blink, stare into the woods, and stay. She wasn't just a wild animal anymore. She became my mirror, my confession booth, my silent roommate. Then came trouble. It was a Thursday. I remember because the radio said rain by Friday. An old pickup pulled into the gravel drive. Hank, local hunter, 60-ish, mean eyes, permanent scowl. He was looking for raccoons. Said they got into his shed. Then he saw her. He squinted. "That yours?" "No," I said. "That's a lynx." "I know." "You feeding her?" I didn't answer. "You know that's illegal. If she bites someone, that's on you. She hasn't bitten anyone. Yet." He paused. "You better do the right thing." He drove off, dust trailing like a warning. That night, I couldn't sleep. What if he called someone? What if they came and took her away? Or worse? I couldn't let that happen. I paced the living room, looked at maps, thought about where to go. I had to protect her. I owed her that. Next morning, I packed supplies, canned food, water, a med kit. Around midnight, when everything was quiet, I coaxed Gray into a crate I'd padded with towels. She didn't resist. I loaded her into my old van and drove into the deep woods, 20 miles east to an abandoned ranger cabin I'd found years ago on a hiking trip. The place was a wreck, but dry. Safe. I set up camp. Stayed with her. The first 2 days were quiet. I repaired the door hinges with scrap metal and my old toolkit. Set up a rain barrel. Hung tarps for shade. It felt strange, like building a hideout with a wild animal as my only partner. That second night, while I was inside boiling rice, I heard snarling. Loud. Raw. I ran out. Another lynx. Young. Male. Huge. He was circling her. Gray was crouched, ears flat. But she couldn't fight. I grabbed a branch, yelled, waved. He snarled at me. I threw a rock. It hit his flank. He leapt, scratched my arm, and took off into the woods. Blood soaked my sleeve. My heart wouldn't stop pounding. Gray limped to me, touched her nose to my elbow. We just stood there, two damaged creatures trying to survive. I cleaned the wound with iodine and wrapped it in a shirt. Pain shot through me, but I didn't care. She was still alive. I stayed another week. My arm healed. Her limp eased. She began exploring the trees near the cabin. Stopped sleeping by the door. We even had a routine. I'd make coffee on a camp stove. She'd perch on a flat rock, watching the forest like a queen on her throne. Then, one morning, I woke up and she was gone. No prints. No sounds. Nothing. I waited. 1 day. 2. Nothing. I left food. No signs. Part of me broke. But another part, maybe the wiser one, knew it was right. I went back home. Back to the real world. Got a job. Started therapy. Repaired a few bridges I'd burned. But I never forgot her. 11 months later, I took a drive back up. Just for the view. For memory's sake. Halfway through a dirt road, I had to stop. 3 shapes crossing ahead. 1 big lynx. 2 small ones. She paused. Looked straight at me. And in that silent second, I knew. She made it. And she wasn't alone anymore. Neither was I.